Christina Lai, come up to the stage. Please put your hands together. We're going to be talking about faking it till you make it. And yeah, Christina, I'll hand the reins straight to you, and you can introduce yourself in a bit more detail. And take that. It'll work this time.
Hello. Can everybody hear me all right? Right. Welcome and thanks for coming tonight. My name's Christina Lai. I am a UX research and design lead at Kainos, and today I'm going to talk about faking it till you make it, or otherwise known as faking a feature to de-risk innovation and test demand. My eyesight's really bad, so I probably will have to stay close to this screen. Let's jump in. There's a little, okay, actually that, I hadn't even started on the screen. Okay. A bit about me. Who is the person you're speaking with? I actually don't come from a UX academic background. My background is in the arts. I have a ceramics degree, a failed potter in a past life, and a recovered marketer in another. So this user research thing I've only really started doing since 2016. I currently work for Kainos. They are a Belfast-headquartered IT consultancy with global offices, and they're known for being experts at digital transformation. That you have probably used some of the services that we've worked on. We work on a lot of public services, such as your passport renewal service or NHS app. So you've probably used us before, or some of the services we've worked on. And there are some logos of previous companies I've worked at. My journey into leadership is relatively new. I've gone from overseeing 1 to 2 researchers since 2021 to overseeing a fully fledged experienced design team since last year. And so, yeah, there's a few more deets on things I'm passionate about. So if you want to grab me in the networking segment, I'm very happy to talk you through that. Right. So the project that I'm going to talk to you about, before I go into it, how many of you in the room have heard of the DVSA? Put your hand up if you have. Okay, that's a good at least half of the room. How many of you can drive in the UK? Actually, that is a lot more than I expected in London, so maybe I'm in the minority here. How many of you are actually trying to learn to drive and are doing your theory test? Oh, a couple of hands in the audience. How many of you who are looking to do your theory test would like the option to do it at home? Yeah. One person, there you go, you're the only one, okay. Cool, so yes, so for those who are not familiar, the DVSA stands for the Driving Standards Vehicle Agency. They're the executive agency for the Department for Transport with the mission of helping you stay safe on Britain's roads, and they are responsible for, amongst many things, including carrying out your theory test and your driving tests if you are looking to drive a car, a motorcycle, a lorry, a coach, a bus, or specialist vehicles. So theory test is a very large-scale service. Over 2.5 million tests are done per year, theory tests alone. And it's often the first public service that people interact with from the age of 16, 17, when you're learning to drive, basically. There are over 17 different types of tests offered, and over 20 different combinations of reasonable adjustments that you can book with your test. Yes, we have these tests can be done from public test centres around the country, as well as in-house theory test centres. So a little bit about the discovery project whereby this feature stub method was used. DVSA has wanted to explore a remote-first model with the aim of increasing visibility for and access to theory tests. So to help DVSA realize this, from January of this year, there was a 12-week detailed discovery that took place to allow us to really consider the risky assumptions around fraud mitigation, public adoption, and the considerations that we would need to consider around the service and the financial proposition if we were to, and obviously consider how, if we could get a clear picture of public demand and how it would play a role in the future delivery of the theory test. Right, so our research objectives here, we wanted to assess demand for remote at-home testing with the actual users of the theory test service, validate barriers and drivers to adoption, and recruit future participants at scale. So there was an opportunity to do this, to ask, would you like to do your theory test at home within the service itself, which has a very high volume of traffic. So it allows us to capture real-life intent data, which is a lot more robust, and we had a limited time window of 3 to 5 weeks to do that. And what is a feature stub? I'm sure some of you are probably wondering. There's a little feature stub of a ticket there on a branch. It's also known as a fake door test or a smoke test. So it is a rapid discovery experiment technique for testing business ideas and testing demand by advertising the feature that you want to implement before you actually even start development. So it consists of a very small part of an upcoming feature, and it includes the very beginning of the experience, usually in a form of a button. Why we chose this method was we wanted to test the initial public appetite of remote invigilation at scale without actually building the actual solution. So this method is ideal for testing the desirability of a new feature within an existing product rather than faking mission-critical functionality. And because we needed a significant amount of traffic to achieve confidence in the results, testing in the live service was ideal because even a small percentage of market share shifting from the test center, doing your test at test center to doing it at home could have a massive commercial impact for DVSA. So the feature stub method means that we can test the smallest thing possible that might validate our risky hypothesis, which is people want to take it at home. And it's a lot more reliable than attitudinal research because you're demonstrating true behavioral intent in the context of the actual booking journey, which will be explored in more detail during the discovery phase. I'm going to slow down a bit here because I think I'm going a bit fast. How we design the feature stub. Based on our research objectives, an experienced design team was ensembled, so including myself from a research perspective, a content designer, a UX designer, the product team, and the tech team. We got together to collaborate and start to quickly develop a lightweight and disposable feature stub. And we built that within the existing theory test booking journey, which is some of the first two screens that here you can see there, for the best chance of result. So these two flows show the user flows mapping from the existing theory test journey and explores options of opening up the feature stub within the same browser tab, or what it might look like if you are opening it up in a new browser tab and you've got like the steps of the screens that we would need to design in the stickies there. So it's some of the early sketches that we did. Design and content considerations. We needed to be minimally intrusive as possible to prevent dropouts, making sure that the content was clear, concise, easy for people to flow through. So we placed it early in the journey before they could put in any personal details, what we call the eligibility pages, or early in the journey before they had any slots selected, because anybody who's tried to book a theory test will know that it's not the easiest thing to do. We created a flow with minimal pages, so it was easy for people to access and go back into the booking journey, including multiple emergency exits in the pages themselves and in the survey that was attached to the feature stub, so that if they change their mind or they want to go back into booking, they could do that. One of the things that is worth pointing out is that there is inherent risk that comes with the feature stub, and that is the risk of candidates feeling misled and concerns from DVSA around reputational risk, right? So it's crucial that we reveal the truth as soon as possible to say, great that you're interested in our feature, it's not ready yet, but we're interested in hearing more on your thoughts about it. As part of that, we also, to mitigate any concerns around complaints that the contact center might receive or confusion from at-home test candidates, because DVSA actually do offer a test that can be done at home, but it's a completely different setup to doing it remotely. You literally have people coming into your house and watching you do your test. But it's a very, very, very small volume of tests that are done that way. To mitigate those concerns, we collaborated with the contact center staff to create guidance in case of questions. The survey itself, the key here was minimizing friction, so that means making the participation in the survey completely optional with as little pages as possible. The survey itself only has 2 questions. One of them is a multiple choice question on the barriers or drivers if they decided that they wanted to do their test at home or not, and then optional fields for putting in their details to join the research panel. As part of that, the feature stub had to go through a data protection impact assessment, or DPIA for short. So collaborating with the data privacy team and security team to mitigate any risk around the free text field. So we had to take out pretty much all of the free text fields in the survey to minimize the risk of people putting sensitive data in the feature stub. So that was one of the mitigations that we took. Sorry, it's popping a bit slowly, but it's the right screen now. Oh, the font's a bit funny. Okay, sorry about that, I'll have to spell that out. We looked at the design from different perspectives and evaluated different ones and talked to the technical experts to determine what would be the most effective, efficient, and the safest way to implement the feature stub. So as part of that, there were technical design considerations and in the post-release monitoring as well. So first of all, mitigating concerns around impacting mission-critical functionality. You don't want to stop people from being able to book their theory tests, which is usually their #1 objective on the service. So, and also to mitigate any negative candidate feedback, we limited the sample traffic for the experiment to 10%, running it for a short period of time, starting with 2 weeks, with the aim to reach a certain number of users. And we built in a feature toggle that could switch it on and off in case of any adverse impact that we observed. Also, it's really key to be very clear on your hypothesis and how it will be proven or disproven. So what is the change that you need to see in order to determine that? And in order to do that, we set up the experiment for measuring clicks and conversions and bounce rates in Google Analytics and App Insights, creating a post-release monitoring plan to monitor things like the feature stub survey responses, a number of people signing up to the research panel, and the online booking portal survey, which is a survey that is on all of the pages of the service, just to see if people were complaining about the feature stub. And what that meant is we could track these signals to help us determine if we needed to increase or decrease traffic to the feature stub, or switch it off completely if there were any negative effects. Right, so I'm sure you're wondering what the results were. So we started off planning to run this experiment for 2 to 4 weeks, and because we received confident enough results within 2 weeks, we were able to switch it off by then. 40,000 people interacted with the feature stub. We smashed our target of achieving 10% of the sample being interested in doing their test at home, with achieving, I think it was 43% of the overall sample saying that they would want to do this at home. So that is a much larger number than we expected, so over 70,000 people. And out of the people who booked the standard test, 42% said that they would prefer to take it at home. And out of those who need support with their tests, these are people who, what we call, use the non-standard accommodation service, so they have reasonable adjustments with their booking. The percentage of people who said they wanted to take the test at home was 53%, so over half, which supported our hypothesis that remote invigilation could improve accessibility for both standard and non-standard accommodation candidates. We received over 5,000 completed surveys with a survey completion rate of 13%. Anybody who knows about survey completion rates will know that's a very high percentage. And I think these are worth highlighting because even a very tiny percentage of change in operating model could mean a very big commercial impact for DVSA and increase accessibility of a service to a population larger than the current group that is being served that use the non-standard accommodation service, i.e. people who want to learn to drive, but they face accessibility barriers and inclusion barriers with the current service by doing the test at a test center, even with accommodations. Right. And yeah, the feature stub insights also allowed us to get insights to form our primary user needs for the discovery project itself, so we could cross-validate factors that drove user behavior, enriching our understanding with qual and quant insights, and tell a holistic story about our users. We had over 2,400 people opt into the research panel, so that gave us plenty of people to recruit and do the research with throughout the discovery. And with that volume, we were able to ensure that the right range of groups were included, including the archetypes that were identified from previous research in the pre-discovery, archetypes such as people living in rural areas, people with access needs, people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, and digital natives, all of which who could benefit from doing a theory test at home. And finally, the big concern for DVSA around reputational risk. No complaints transpired from the contact center or from the OBP survey, so that was a big win for me. I'm going to summarize the learnings from this experience, or otherwise, I guess, things I would do differently if I was to do this again. Number one is doing it early, so before you invest in building a solution with risky, untested assumptions. And then the second link to that is, this is really key actually, getting stakeholder buy-in and strategic alignment up front. Because one of the biggest challenges we had was even doing this, getting the buy-in to do this in the first place. Understandably, there were concerns around the customer being offered something that didn't actually exist currently, and it being a complete transformation to the current delivery model, and also the scale over which people would see this in the live service. We're talking over 20, 30,000 people a day. Thankfully, last year, DVSA released their 2025 strategy in which they published their commitment to explore the possibility of and the feasibility of doing their test at home. So this was the very first time that this information was in the public domain about a potential change to the delivery model, and having this published made that buy-in a bit easier because it was already part of the public-facing strategy. So before this, from the pre-discovery, we'd only done user interviews, surveys with a much smaller sample where we could control the messaging a lot more. So whilst it's, yes, definitely try to do it early, you do need to balance it against stakeholder pushback and make sure you have the right approvals in place that have been received to communicate that potential change. Third is focusing on new features rather than mission-critical functionality and making sure that your journey itself has a high traffic volume. As I mentioned, feature stubs are ideal for testing desirability of a new feature rather than an existing offering with good traffic, rather than replacing key functionality, because if they expect to do something from a service and you tell them that it's not there, that's going to piss people off. You're going to get user backlash. So that's a key consideration there. Number 4, proactively mitigating reputational risk through stakeholder co-design. There was healthy skepticism with this method. It's more commonly used in e-commerce or startups, and it comes with inherent risks of people feeling misled, and reputational risk, which is a big deal for a public service, for the civil service in general, right? And so it's crucial that you reveal as quickly as possible that the feature stub is not real, and politely explain that the feature is not ready yet. And also we mitigated some of this by co-designing with our stakeholders, with the DPIA, the Data Privacy Impact Assessment, and creating the content guidance with contact centers. And this helps with the stakeholder buy-in, where you're able to define an acceptable level of risk for a disposable feature stub to learn the learnings that you need to learn. Number 5, finally, simplifying the design and development process, keeping it disposable. The biggest challenge for me as a design lead here was the quick turnaround needed to hand over between design and development, where there was no precedent of building a feature stub. This required really simplifying down all the steps, for example, using manual software testing, and making sure that it was designed, refined, developed, tested, and released within under 5 weeks. So in honesty, we didn't know what we didn't know that had to be done in a streamlined and fast manner. So I had to step in and do roles that were outside of my usual job role, like doing QA testing and organizing the design, product, and tech teams around the requirements and the implementation of the feature stub. And so this is a learning for the future, and I've created a feature stub checklist to align the team roles on the steps that they need to check, the tasks that they need to do, such as like content checks on tickets by the content designer before development starts. In summary, feature stubs are a fast, cheap, and robust way for testing demand and assessing desirability for a new feature for an existing product. Its value is in designing the smallest thing that might disprove your hypothesis or possibly reveal strategic directions for your product. And it can also help pave way for adoption of things like A/B testing or multivariate testing. For this project, quantitative confidence was critical because it would be highly risky to move forward with a proposition without it. And by enabling candidates to vote with their feet, or in this case with clicks, we're able to get to a point where we can refine the proposition and the look and feel of what a success at-home testing experience is like. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm keen to hear questions. If anybody's done a feature stub before.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you. We do have a few minutes. Does anyone have a question? Oh, we've got one at the back. Might run. Can I have some hands if anyone else has questions? One here, one up there. I'm going to throw it up to you first.
Hi. So whenever we release a new feature, we use something like Intercom, or we try and think of tooltips to bring users to find this new feature on the platform. How do you ensure that users find the feature stub and that people aren't just missing it and then not clicking on it because they haven't been able to find it? Do you advertise it?
We specifically allocated a certain amount of traffic to the experiment that we were comfortable with, that we could switch off if we saw adverse effects or ramp up. Although 10% is already quite a lot given the volumes that we had. Because with our experiment, it's at the very beginning of the funnel, so the leakage is virtually impossible. They will see it if they're part of that experiment cohort. So yeah, they are literally asked, do you need support for your test, yes or no? Regardless of what they click, they will be shown, do you want to do your test at home, yes or no? So that's how you capture all of what your experiment sample, we'll see.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You're right next to me.
Cheers, thank you. A great presentation, thank you so much.
Thank you.
My question would be, what was the timeline turnaround from the very first brief to the final results? And how much did it cost for the company if that's not NDA?
Can you, for the last part of the question, can you repeat that? I couldn't quite hear.
How much did it cost, the whole project for the company, approximate? And what was the turnaround from like the first brief idea to the final results?
Can't tell you about the cost, sorry. But yeah, the time, we wanted to do it within 3 weeks, but it ended becoming 5 weeks because we had to align it with existing release cycles. And I think that's the key when you're doing something throwaway that isn't bespoke and you want to make it as efficient as possible. You're kind of beholden to what your existing delivery cycles were. So we did it within under 5 weeks, but we probably could have done it within 3 weeks if there weren't issues with that particular release cycle. It was done between January and February this year.